around the world. And today, in a couple of hours, will be a march of the families here in Mexico for this claim. And before it starts, we will also have an interfaith prayer. And Sofia told us also that now the families are with our president in a meeting, so she can talk more about that. So I will not talk more because we have here our panelists that we are so grateful that they can share with us more about the case and the trial and the process that you have seen in the film, or you will end to see in the Spanish film. So here I would like to present our three panelists. The Sofia Robina, Sofia de Robina. Sorry, Sofia de Robina. She's a lawyer at the International Area of Human Rights Center Miguel Agustin Pro, one of the civil organization, a very important civil organization that accompany the legal process and represents Ayotzinapa families in that process. Also, we have the pleasure to have Daniel Harrich. He's a German filmmaker living in Munich. He's producer, writer, and director of the Diva Film GmbH, and established the genre of the investigative feature film in Germany. Is one of the initials in this gender. Wolf-Dieter Vogel, he's our third panelist. He's a German journalist living in Mexico. He's a correspondent of the German daily Die Tageszeitung and the news agency EPD, and works for the broadcasting stations. He cooperates with the Mexican journalist network Periodistas de a pie, and he is also part of this group of organizers of this webinar. So you are welcome and thank you very much. And we are going to start with Sofia. Sofia, you can talk about what you think is more important to say, but maybe you can tell us what did the weapons of the guns investigations means for the work you did on the Ayotzinapa case. When you visit the court in Stuttgart with Aldo's brother, Lionel, what were you expecting? And of course, from the Ayotzinapa case in general, you can share us what you want.
Sarah, and good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you very so much for this invitation and for all the organization. And thank you for continuing opening spaces to remember that the fight for truth and justice continues to summon us both in Germany and in Mexico. And special thanks to Daniel for telling this story, which is very angry, but also of a lot of dignity. And thanks also to Wolf, who has always been an ally and has helped families to their voice to be heard. So thank you both. I'm very happy to be here with you. Today marks 6 years since the events of Ayotzinapa, 6 years since 43 students were disappeared, more than 2,000 days of their families looking for them, 6 years since the night when 3 more students were executed, and 6 years since Aldo was shot by a gun that keeps him in coma. It's been 6 years since the family have turned their lives to search for the disappeared, but also to seek justice. And in the case of Aldo's family, to take care of him. And as you see in the documental, all the family go through to give him the better conditions to have near to him. 6 year of enormous dignity, of crossing borders, of removing all the obstacles of a previous government that want to terrify them and that lied to them, But there's still a long way to go. And today, as Sarah already said, they are with the presidents to remember that they're having some steps that have been taken, but the most important thing is missing. Find the students and give justice to all their families, including all those families. And of course, including all the justice that has to come with the exportation of the weapons. So to remember Ayotzinapa is also to remember one of the tragedies that shock us as a country, but also as to the international community, not only in the crisis of disappearance and the collusion of the organized crime. And Ayotzinapa also shows the most painful phase of arms trafficking. The results of an illegal export, the consequences of a trade that don't care about people's life, so to do business no matter what. Ayotzinapa is the story of a bullet used on a German weapon, which arrived illegally at the hands of a police corrupted with organized crime. A bullet that was in the hands of a police who was able to shoot two 19-year-old students who that night were traveling on buses just to arrive to the school and then go to a protest. A bullet that ended up in one of the students who was only trying to protect his classmates. A bullet that left Aldo in a coma and that has made his family dedicate all their time to caring for him, hugging him, opening doors to make sure that the authorities respond and give only the minimum health conditions. On his name, on Aldo's and his family name, and we by their side as one of the organizations that represent them, have been fighting for justice all these years, both in German with the help with all these allies that we have there, but also in Mexico for this bullet that never have arrived. So Daniel's documentary helped us telling that story, a story about corruption, business that avoid laws, that find ways out, entrepreneurs that are protected by the authorities, that are not sanctioned or not good sanctioned, laws that are violated or not served. A story that unites two countries by corruption. It's very sad, but and impunity, but also a story that thanks to this documentary can become one more tool of denunciation and demand and a tool in this fight for justice. From Centro Pro, we start looking how to help to have more information about this trafficking use of weapons. So we made a lot of requests for information to the Mexican authorities. And we knew that between 2006 and 2009, the Secretary of Defense in Mexico acquired more than 2,000 guns, rifles of Heckler & Koch. And at least like 500, at least the half of these weapons arrived to the states that were provided, and in particular, more than 4,000 weapons arrived to Guerrero. So the weapons that arrived to the state of Guerrero, a state that is known of the violation of human rights, the violence, and the collusion between authorities and the organized crime. These weapons end at the hands of the police involved in the events that occur against the students on Ayotzinapa. According to the documents that appear in the file of the Attorney General Office on the Ayotzinapa case, 99 Heckler & Koch weapons were in the hands of the Corporation of Security of the State of Guerrero involved of the events, the police of the municipalities of Huitzuco and Iguala. In addition, thanks to the investigation and the documents of the file, we know that at least 7 weapons were fired in the scenario where Aldo gets shot, in the scenario of some of the students where disappear, and we find at least 3 weapons with 3 bullets in that area. We need to remember that the police took some of the evidence, and that's something that make us have less evidence, and of course make very difficult to arrive to justice, but at least we know that they use these weapons. We have bullets that were there in the scenario where Aldo gets shot. So there's also a lot of pendings in Mexico, not only with the 43 students, but also it's important to remember that this traffic of weapons could not have occurred without the Secretary of Defense arm taking place of that. There are some documents in the process in German that talks about corruption with this integrants of the army, but there's have been either an investigation start. I know that there's a lot of problems and the documentary shows about the process in German, but here in Mexico, neither start an investigation. So there's a lot of justice lacking in this. So when I heard in the documentary how German authorities refer to human rights as an aspiration, when I remember how they not let Aldo be part of the trial as a victim and to talk about the consequence of the arms, and especially when we go there just to be and to make the responsible just see us, just see Aldo's face and know that if they want to close their eyes, we are going to show. We are going to find a way to show these consequences with even if it's in other countries. So it was very, very impressive when they took the photographs that Lionel took to the trial. And that shows us how they don't want to see the consequence. This family, Lionel carries with such dignity this photo because it's to make to give Aldos a voice. So I think that represents as well as the illegal arms export mechanisms has been deaf to who are the recipients of this willingness, who to the people who pay the consequence with his life. And it's important to say it, and even if they occur, or even if these consequences occur on another continent, even if they don't want to see it, we are going to accompany Aldo's life in all the spaces we can to show that can happen again. So just to finish, I would like to say that families like Aldo's has been so brave in raising their voices, and they have managed to get Aldo after 4 years that he was transferred to a house near to them. They have managed to take care of him every day, talk to him, feed him, give his medicines with a lot of love, and also to seek for justice that is not just for him, it's for all the Mexicans that have been involved in this in cases like this, and other countries that can suffer the consequence of using this kind of weapons. His life was broken that September 96, but today they are also our greatest inspiration to continue telling his story, to continue demanding that those who have to do so are accountable, to make visible that the sale of weapons cannot be left to the impact they generate, to the lives it takes, so that the international business continue to be monitored, because for us, human rights are not something of a way or convenience or an inspiration. They are a conviction, and they are a commitment to continue within together the families of Ayotzinapa toward justice. So thank you for making us still in walk on that way. I will leave it there.
Thank you very much, Sofia, for sharing all the hard work that you have made and the center have made in this process, in this terrible history. And as you say, we have a lot to learn, and we are learning a lot about the families and all their fights, their brave and their fights. So I remember you that after our speakers talk, we will have a session of answering questions. So you can send your questions in the chat and also in the face live, wherever you are looking this panel. Daniel, it's your turn. So Maybe you can talk us, why did you decide to focus on the issues of weapon exports to Mexico? What were you able to accomplish and where are we today? These are questions, but you can feel free to say whatever also you see is important.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for hosting this event today online, which I think is just so important in a time of crisis that you have in Mexico, that you have in the United States and Germany as well. Because usually, and that's actually the reason why I think this topic is so important for me, for us as a company, as a family. Usually, it's the countries like Germany that do well. No matter what crisis, and it's countries like Mexico or other countries that suffer the consequences of our profits and of our exports, whether it is arms, whether it's outsourcing of pharmaceutical production to India, whether it is terrorism, refugees, etc. So we are in a very privileged situation, and I feel like the time of the COVID is now bringing us to somewhat of an equal playing field, where we all suddenly realize we're only human. So I hope that this time is, will be reminding us of the value of humanity, the value of human rights, the value of accepting the equality that is given to us by God or nature, whatever you want to call it. That was actually initially the reason for us to start working on this subject, because when we realized that Germany was just a major arms producer and exporter, but it's something that's not really talked about in German society, at least like 10 years ago. And Wolf, I'm excited interested to hear your perspective. But 10 years ago, when we started working on the subject, arms exports was something that was talked about within very interested circles, people that had information on it, worked somewhere in that field, but it wasn't something that was on the I always call it on the Tagesschau, on the 8 p.m. evening news. But we started researching and we started finding out. I mean, initially the idea was I wanted to make a film about illegal arms trade, and my idea was I was going to travel to Africa and to the Arab countries, etc. And my perception was I will find Russian arms dealers that land with their plane somewhere in the desert and sell illegal Kalashnikovs. So when we started traveling to Sudan, to Latin America as well, to many countries, looking for illegal weapons, we realized actually Germany is a major player. A country that we never expected our country to be a major source of small arms, of major arms for war, that are being traded legally, illegally, and in this gray zone in between. And that actually brought us at some point to Mexico in 2013. I think it was the first time that we traveled to Mexico for the G36 Heckler & Koch case, a year before the disappearance of the 43 students. My father and I, we traveled, we were in Colombia at that time looking for German weapons. And we got a tip off there that, somebody told us there's some case of new HK Heckler & Koch weapons being used in Mexico illegally. So we got on a plane, we met a friend of ours, a colleague from Germany in Mexico, and drove with her down to Guerrero, to Chilpancingo, when a year before the case of the Ayotzinapa 43 students, 2 other students were shot dead on the major highway during a protest of the Ayotzinapa. And we found pictures and photos of police officers using those G36 assault rifles. We were brought by students of the Ayotzinapa that we met back then to Tixla, to this little village outside Chilpancingo, where a auto defense group actually had a couple of those G36 assault rifles from Germany that we knew at that point were never supposed to be there. So that tied us to this whole case of the Ayotzinapa and the students very early on, a year before the tragedy of September 26 of 2014. Actually, two of those students that we met back then were also part of the 43 that disappeared a year later. So it made it something very personal to us when we were in Chilpancingo at the Ayotzinapa at the seminary for the first time. We actually decided to, you mentioned earlier, Ruth, that we do something called investigative feature film. It's a genre that we founded here in Germany that's actually only here. I've never seen it anywhere else in the world. We take investigative research and make a feature film, a movie with the #1 top stars of the German film and television, based on the investigative, at that point, unpublished research. So with the case of the two students from Chilpancingo from 2013, we made a movie in 2014, just as the Ayotzinapa case was happening in reality, shooting it in Mexico. I mean, at that time, Sofia, we didn't know each other. We met later on only. Also, Wolf, we only met, I think, a year later or something like that, or half a year later. But it made this case so incredibly important for us. And I think it's not only about the question of the humanity. For me, it's always a question. So not only the question of human rights and morals, but it's a question of legality. And I had a major issue from the beginning on seeing that a country as rich and wealthy and well-to-do as Germany, that always claims to be sticking to all the rules, is not really playing by the rules. And even with the help of the officials in the government that are supposed to limit illegal exports were actually made possible to Mexico. So it tied us to the case very early on. It made us influence, and we've done it with many other subjects as well over the last years. It put us in a position to influence the legal proceedings against the company Heckler & Koch. In another case against the company Sig Sauer, there was about illegal exports to Colombia. But it helped us push people like Holger Rothbauer, who's the lawyer who put in the legal claims against HK, and Jürgen Gresslin, who's been fighting the fight against Heckler & Koch, and who's best friends and partners with Holger Rothbauer, together, and to push them and elevate them and help them on the legal aspect as much as physically possible. We got a lot of documents, we got a lot of witnesses and testimonies that were able to at least push ahead and bring, #1, the big audience, millions of viewers that watch these programs, but at the same time put a lot of pressure on the legal aspect of it. And we saw, and we continued on it. I mean, that's also, again, the case was so important to us that we continued after finishing in 2015 with the first major event programming. We just released the second one on April 1st of this year. Again, another feature film, another documentary, another online event. And I think we'll continue working on that subject. One last thing that I want to say, because I want to leave a lot of information for Wolf to tell about the research itself, because we are partners on that as well. I think it is very important to also, in every interview that I've been giving, and I've been giving a lot because both the event programmings were huge here in Germany. In all the interviews, I was always asked, don't you feel scared doing those kind of subjects, working in Mexico, working in Colombia, working in Sudan, etc. And at this point, I just want to take a moment and point out the luxury of being a German journalist, working wherever in the world with a German passport, and the difference to my colleagues in Mexico. People that, I mean, there's so many colleagues that were murdered, and the human rights, the rights to the free press, to free speech, violated over the last 7 years since we started working in Mexico. It's a tragedy. It's something that needs as much attention as the case of the 43. The lack of freedom of press, the violence directed towards journalists in Mexico and many other countries. And obviously, my answer to those questions of the journalists when I'm being asked, are you not scared? I feel no, because as a German, in Germany, in my country, I can work like that and do those critical things very freely. If I work in a country like Mexico, nobody's going to harm me. I'm a German. I have a passport, a German passport. It gives me a lot of protection, luckily so far. But I want to take the time and remember and remind of the, put my thoughts, give my thoughts to the people that lose their lives and they're healthy, health to violence directed against journalists in the country. And I think that's pretty much what I have to say at this point. And again, in the end, I want to thank you again for this wonderful event, also to John and everybody organizing it.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for all your hard work and research work in all these years, and that you work help us to visibilize all the corruption, impunity, and things that are in our countries, and also the difference that you show up between Mexico and between German system, no? So as you say, we have here Wolf Dieter Vogel. He's a very important piece of the research here in Mexico for this case, and he will talk us about the collaboration between human rights defenders, journalists, and lawyers to accomplish this research, the importance of media, and about the export of guns and rifles from Germany to Mexico that is longer easy, but now there are other vías that German guns are entered to Mexico also, as you've seen at the end of the film, about 6 hours. There is also some information. So Wolf, feel you free to talk about what you want.
Hello, thanks a lot for the interest you have on the issue. First of all, I also would like to underline what Daniel says, that Daniel and I also, I'm living in Mexico, but also like Daniel, I have a German passport that makes it more easy for us to work there than for all the colleagues who are risking their life. A lot of people, a lot of colleagues were murdered, were killed in Mexico. And I think it's very, very important to see that all the time, to have that present. Don't forget this now, that it's a very difficult job working in Mexico as a journalist, especially as a Mexican journalist. When I saw this documentary the first time, I was very happy because the film and what the film shows is the result of a long way of activism and investigation, publications, and juridical activities. As it shows, everything began with the charge that filed the activist Jürgen Gresslin in 2010 against Heckler and Koch, followed by a lot of articles, TV reports, features, human rights actions, political interventions, and more. I'm sure that without these activities, the trial never would have taken place. In all these years before the beginning of the trial, the prosecutor tried to shut down the investigations, but he couldn't. Due to the pressure, he was always forced to continue, which ended in the opening of the legal proceeding. Yes, it's right. Finally, what the film shows, finally only were sentenced 2 persons. Neither the director of Heckler and Koch nor the responsible representatives of the German public export authorities were punished. By the way, also the Mexican responsible persons from the defense ministry stay impune, although we know that the general adulterated the documents together with the staff of Heckler and Koch in Mexico. But let's go back to Germany. Never before we had such a significant trial against a German arms company like this one. Millions of people could see how the arms trafficking control in Germany works, or better, they saw that the arms export control isn't worth the paper on which it is written. Like quoting Jürgen Gresslin, who said this. We had good discussions in the parliament and changes in the export policy, for example, with regards to the end user control. But till now, the post-shipment control, how it's called now, which was introduced in 2015 after our interventions, doesn't work well. Nevertheless, nowadays, it's not possible to export small arms directly from Germany to Mexico. And it's more difficult to sell small weapons in other countries with big human rights problems. In 2019, the German government prohibited the export of small arms in third states. That means states which do not form part of the NATO or similar states like Australia. I've been working a lot of time publishing on human rights violations in Mexico. And for me, the most important was the relation between the business of a German arms factory and the outcome for the people in Guerrero, in this case, Guerrero, or let's say the lethal consequences of these exports. Never before it was possible to show to such a big audience the fearsome situation of human rights in Mexico. Millions of Germans now know about the attack against the Ayotzinapa students. It's very usual that the people who hear that I'm living in Mexico ask me about the 43 disappeared students. That's extraordinary because Mexico is not a country with that big importance in Germany, no? And so it's really extraordinary. Okay, that's what we reached. But anyway, it's only a small step on the way to stop the small arms trafficking in the world and to Mexico. I mentioned that nowadays it's very difficult to export small weapons from Germany directly to Mexico. And the documentary shows not only Heckler and Koch, but also Sig Sauer had problems with the German justice. After the scandals, both corporations declared that they will stop the weapons export in countries without human rights problems. They call it the strategy of green states. That sounds good, although it's not more than respecting the prohibition of the German government. Later on, Sig Sauer made a new step. In June, the corporation announced that they are closing a factory in Germany. But meanwhile, Sig Sauer Incorporated became one of the most important small arms factories in the United States. It's important to say that the company is 100% in the hand of German investors. While declaring himself a clean company in Germany, Sig Sauer makes the big business in USA. The documentary suggests that in the past this business was illegal because the weapons exported to Mexico or parts of them were produced in Germany. German prosecutors are proving that, as the film shows. But for me, the question is, what does it change if the arms are produced in New Hampshire? The most important is that these arms are landing in Mexico. Exported legal or illegal, they are killing people. Marines carried Sig Sauer assault rifles when they disappeared people in Nuevo Laredo. With the father of Daniel, Walter, we were there and we interviewed people who lost their women who lost their men because they were disappeared from the army or from the Marines 2 years ago. Also, the murder of the activist Marisela Escobedo was killed in Ciudad Juarez with a pistol from Sig Sauer. She fought against the impunity of the killer of her daughter. And also a lot of criminals all over Mexico still are shooting with this German technology. Nothing indicates that this killing will stop. Obviously, due to the looser US rules for trafficking firearms, the export of these weapons increased in the last months, despite of the corona pandemic. It was a good business for Sig Sauer. In April, the Mexican National Guard disclosed the purchase of 50,000 Sig Sauer pistols. And only in the same month, in April, they sold more than 50,000 other semi-automatic pistols to the other side of Rio Bravo. And still, we don't talk about the smuggled arms to Mexico. So there's no doubt to stop this, the first address are the US authorities. But assuming the success that we had in Germany, we should also direct us to the German publicity and the courts, how we made it before till now. It's a fact that these arms are based on German technology, even though they are produced in the USA. And it's a fact that the money earned in this business goes directly to German businessmen. Following this, we have two ways to hold accountable corporations like Sig Sauer in Germany, with the German and European guidelines on arms exports, which don't allow the export of German technology to countries where this technology could be used for the violation of human rights or breach of international law. Or with the so-called National Action Plan and the projected supply chain law. The idea of this mechanism is to help corporations to account whose productions are involved directly and via subcontractors in human rights violations. Till now, doesn't exist a binding law, but organizations of the civil society are fighting for such a law. It has to include the obligation for executive care of human rights for arm-producing corporations. So Germany never has been the most important exporter of weapons to Mexico, but I think from the example of the successful fighting against the illegal business of Heckler and Koch, we can learn a lot, not only with regards to the other arms exporting countries, but also with regards to other issues, for example, to other international dangerous corporations, for example, the business with glyphosate from the German company Bayer, who bought now Monsanto, or the activities of Canadian mining industry. So I think we should use the experience to go further on this way. So thanks a lot, and I'm interested in what you are asking. Thanks.
Thank you, Wolf, for pointing a lot of issues that there are a lot of work to do to stop the arms that in Mexico are causing so much suffering. So we have some last part of this panel is from question and answers and answers and questions. And we have some questions that Latvia tell us. I will say all the questions. Some are more directly for Sofia and others maybe Daniel and Wolf can answer. So with the new government of Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has there been a change in the attitude of the government in this case? Or is it that at the state level in Guerrero or the federal level, they cannot or don't want to act in the case? What are in the new government, the perception of the new government? And the Mexican army say that they sell arms to police so that they can defend themselves. But on the other hand, there are crimes committed directly by police, or the weapons of the police are stolen or go missing. So what responsibility should the gun companies or the Mexican army have when weapons are transferred or sold to institutions suspected of having committed extrajudicial killings or other human rights violations? These are for you, Sofia. Maybe you answer and then we go to the other two questions we have.
Thank you. Well, with the first question, I will say that to remember the past government not only did not give answers to the families, they also invented a version of the events without truth, hiding information, and they commit a lot of irregularities in the investigations, also torturing the people they detain. They fabricate this historical truth that that was not true at all. So thanks for the struggle of the families, this new government, Andrés Manuel López Obrador government, they achieve that the government commit with the process, and the government at the beginning they create a commission for truth and justice for the case. So this commission, a lot of authorities in Mexico participate, but they also coordinate with the unit of the general attorney for the case to look for the investigations, and they have made some progress. More people have been arrested. Those who commit irregularities in the investigation are being investigated. There's have been a new identification that was obtained by one of the bones of the students that the authorities find in other place that the last government say their students were killed. So that also help us to show how the other government lies. So yes, there's a change. Of course, there's a change. The government and a few minutes ago, the president also reaffirms it will. So there's a change, but the families are very clear. Until they don't find the students, until all the responsibilities are not sanctioned, there's still this is not enough. So it's been 2 years for this government, and even there's have been some steps taken. It's not enough, and there's a lot of pendings regarding to the investigation and the diligence of searching the students. So the families, that's what have told today to the president. They in some way trust them, but that trust has to give some answers regarding to where all the students are, and regarding to close those investigations that they have started to all the responsible in all the levels, right? Not only the municipal police, but also the ones of the army that that were on the place, and also the ones that investigate, but that was in charge of the investigation, but make all the irregularities. And about the other question is, yes, it's very interesting, and I think that one of the important things that the documental and that's this space help us is to think how these things never happen again, which laws we need to change, which mechanisms we need to make happen to really have control about the exportation. That thing about the destinatory of the weapons, the constancy of the destinatory of the weapons, it's something unbelievable. You cannot make an exportation, and you cannot have a restriction of where these arms are going to end, and then say that this constance where actually says who is going to have the arm, don't be part of the process. It's incredible. So yeah, we need more controls, and also we need to fight against impunity, even in Germany and in Mexico. As I said, there's have been no response of the defense of the people who were in charge of this commerce and who signed these contracts. So we have to have more investigation, administrative investigation, and also even criminal investigation to know all the change, right? We know that the arms get to Mexico and the police use it, but we have to know all the people that were in charge of these decisions, and to render accounts to justice. Also, as you have already said, the collusion between organized crime and the police, it's a big deal, and a lot of guns have been reported as disappear. So that's how we can maybe understand that also the organized crime has these weapons. So this collusion is very important, because they act together. They act together in disappearing the students. They act together in this kind of business, because the authorities permit the organized crime, and the organized crime let the authorities be part of the gains of the illegal acts that they do. So I think that there's a lot of responsibilities that we have to be clear and to clarify, and also to have consequences in all the change from the authorities of German, but also of Heckler and Koch, and in the authorities in Mexico, with the Secretary of the Defense, and also with the police that use the weapons, and also in the organized crime. So this shows all this network of illegal use of weapons, of corruptions, and of course with the link with the human rights violations that it's for us the heart of the consequences of all this illegal network.
Thanks a lot, Sofia. And so we are going to pass to another two questions very fast, because we are ending our panel. What possibilities are there now as a result to push for more prosecution, not only in Germany, but in other countries in Europe and in the world? is a very general question, maybe for Walt and Daniels. And there is another very specific that sent Jimenez about if in the north of Chiapas there are some guns. Is northern Chiapas a zone of these kinds of arms destination recently? Maybe some of you knows, or Sofia. Okay, Daniel, is
I
your
would like to say something in regards to what you can do. I mean, the most important part, or the most important, can you hear me? So for me, the most important part, and we just had a case like that I communicated with John about, is actual communication. It's all about communicating and networking. And I know that Jürgen Grestin from Germany is working on the Global Net, which is a project to basically get journalists and activists from all over the world connected in regards to illegal arms exports. The more information we can get, the more cases of arms that that people see even on news reports, or photos they can take of pistols. I mean, with 6 Hour, we worked off photos that we found on YouTube initially, and then knew where to go and where to look for. Serial numbers, any kind of information from governments. We don't speak Spanish well enough. We don't know how to access Spanish government data. We don't know how to request additional information. I feel it's all about getting information and sharing them widely. Don't keep it to yourself. We're it's a world that has grown so small in terms of the communication conference people for the world. We need to find a way of distributing the information and getting it on the air and doing research on our end. And without that kind of information, we can't go anywhere.
Are you hearing? Because you stopped your image. We are not hearing you, Daniel. The others can hear Daniel. I think he goes outside. I want to say one more question for ending this part. Jürgen Graslin says that he is going to meet the chairman of Heckler & Koch, Bodo Koch, at the end of October. And he has 2 questions to our Mexican friend, Sofia, and me, and the others. What shall he tell to the Bodo Koch? What do you think about our request to Heckler & Koch to support a victims fund? And that's another question. And I think it's the last one. And also, Walt, if you want to say something, and Sofia, please.
Maybe I answered before Sofia to the question, which also Daniel answered. Well, first of all, we know that there were reached German weapons from Heckler & Koch illegally to Chiapas. No, they went to Chiapas also illegally. That's what we know about Chiapas. And I'm sure that also weapons, pistols from 6 Hour are in Chiapas, no? Because like Sofia said, yes, there's a big cooperation between police, militaries, and organized crime. And there are a lot of arms smuggled from the north, which also go to Chiapas. I'm living in Oaxaca, which is very nearby Chiapas, and yes, there you can see also German weapons. It's not that difficult to find them. This Heckler & Koch, this weapons from this sheath 36 from Heckler & Koch, yes, they are there. And with regards to the other question, yes, the most important seems to me to communicate, to inform. The most important for me not was the trial, but the trial was the possibility to public the situation, to make more public the situation. That's the most important thing. Now we have a lot of, in Germany, I think the majority of the Germans are against are against the export of weapons from Germany. So these are the things that that for me seem to be the most important in all this in action that we are doing. And I think it's very useful to follow every case we can. If someone realizes the direct consequences of the productions, it's much easier to convince him. No? That was the effect we had with Ayotzinapa, and it's the same in other cases like the killing of Marisela Escobedo. And that's what we also owe to the victims of the violence, I think. Oh,
Sofia?
Thank you. Just, I would like to say that with the support from ECCHR, we want Aldo to be recognized as victim in the process in order to access to the trial, to have more information, to can look to the proofs that they will using there. And also, as I said, to recognize that the use of the weapons is not so far from the illegal trade, especially when the situation of the places to which the arms were sent was known, having knowledge that the final destination of the weapons and against whom it are used has to be part of the central of the and on the basis of the mechanism of control. So that was one of the objectives that we want, and in order to Aldo recognize as victim, as we have already said, we were very sad that the tribunal didn't allow us that, and also that decision of the tribunal makes that we didn't have an opportunity, as I understand the laws, to be part or like for the reparation of to have part of the fund. So that answer, and also I want to say thanks a lot to Graslin, to all the fight that he make every day over there. It's very inspiring. So yes, we think it's very important, not only because we have to recognize that Aldo's families have to dedicate all his life to take care about Aldo, and that not only have impact on their lives and on their hearts, but also a monetary consequence. So of course that can be a part of not to erase what happened or not to heal in any way, but just to help them to have more ways to give the Aldos the conditions he needs all the time, special food, special medicine. So of course that can help the family when they have been through a lot, and of course that in the real situation of every day of a family that, as you see in the documental, they work in the fields. They are very humble families. So of course that can help in a bare minimum way to have the minimum conditions. But also I think that could represent a very significant symbolism of recognizing that yes, the victims are part of this illegal export, and we have to look at them as the very part of the consequences. And as I said, a bullet that shouldn't arrive to Mexico make Aldo stay stay in coma as he is. So I think that if they could have some of the fund, it will send a message that that German authorities and laws and all that take care of that, and I think that even for the businessman, they only take about money. So if you took some money up there, maybe they can look that yeah, you can don't make business when you are killing people. So I think that's important, and still making things to don't happen again. We see the end of the documental, and we don't want another way to make the weapons still be in hands of the police that is making people disappear in Mexico. And thank again to everyone.
Thanks a lot. We are over the time. There is a question left about the international instruments about transfers of arms. I'm so sorry that we don't have time to answer, but I think that it's very important also to go in those agreements that the states have made about make responsible exports and transfers, and make a real reality about the disposition that these agreements, international agreements, have. We're finishing our panel. For sure there are more questions that we could still thinking on it. I only want to say thank you to Wolf, to Sofia, to Daniel, to Global Exchange, to all the organization that get together for this webinar. And this will be recorded also, you can say it, and also look again the film in Spanish to finish. And thanks everybody for supporting all the action to control guns and to get through the truth and the justice in all the cases of violence and forced disappearing, porque vivos se los llevaron, vivos los queremos. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.